want to give a little chance to chat with Connor about public goods funding. This is something that I'm actually pretty interested in, like on a personal level. And I don't know, I mean, no problem if you weren't, but last week I was chatting with Juan Benet from Protocol Labs, who also has a pretty strong personal interest in public goods funding. And something that came up is like, there's a lot of new sort of like approaches to how you can create sustainable public goods funding models, but it's actually it's really hard because people don't want to pay for things that they can like kind of use for free. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on sort of like how are we innovating on public goods funding, and where does a sort of like DAO memberships and DAOs play a key role in that work?
Yeah, this is great. I love Juan Bennett's work, and I'm really excited about, there's about 5-ish mechanisms that have emerged in the last couple of years for public goods funding that are genuinely novel mechanisms that probably wouldn't have existed if not for the cryptoverse, predominantly because there's something special that happens when people feel as though they have freedom to think however they want, and then because they have this confidence that they'll be able to later deploy whatever it is that they come up with onto a network somewhere. And so, some of them that are definitely worth pointing out is quadratic funding. If you've ever heard of quadratic funding, it is a way to for basically a donor who cares about an ecosystem, like for example, if it was the Friends with Benefits ecosystem or a data DAO ecosystem, to take a bunch of capital and then to kind of say to their community, hey, if you donate to a cause that you care about, then this is how much we'll match it. And when more people donate to a cause, there's more matching funds that are provided to it. And it turns out that it has these really beautiful mathematical properties, which are the things that I care about, that ensure that it kind of like optimally funds various different goods. Another one that's worth talking about are hypercerts. And hypercerts are essentially a way to create an NFT that is associated with a certain amount of impact. And there are others that are out there. I think Vitalik has a post where he says he believes that maximum there could be about 11 public goods funding mechanisms total. And right now we have about 5. He thinks that somewhere around 11. I might be getting these exact numbers wrong. I just heard this the other day, but we have about 5 today, and there's about 11 that we could expect to have when we're at full maturity. The mechanism that I'm really excited about and that I've been researching for the last year is called index wallets. Actually, Juan prefers to call it vector money, which is also a pretty cool name for it.
Pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, and really, index wallets are super simple to describe. They're just a payment method where instead of spending with one currency, you spend with all of the currencies that are in your wallet at any given time. So if you were to go to a grocery store and you're buying your strawberries, if you have 5% ETH and 20% FWB in your wallet, then when you make the payment, the money that is transferred is 5% ETH and 20% FWB. That's it. And the key idea is that whenever you make this transfer, you're always, when that money is transferred, the person who receives it also has to spend it in that same way, where it's all bundled together like this. They can't break it apart and just spend with, just the Ethereum or just the FWB or just the USDC. And you might say, okay, why would you ever want this? Seems like it adds a constraint. I'll remind you that you are a big walking constraint. Like most of what's interesting about you is what the chemicals that make you up are not doing. Because if they were having every possible interaction, you would just be a bubbling puddle on the floor. So it's actually very important to add constraints, and sometimes cool emergent properties come for them, including humans and cultures and societies. In this particular case, what comes from this constraint is that you can show that if you had a public good that somebody had created, let's say somebody went and created a park, it would be possible for someone to donate to that park and in return get a impact certificate, kind of a receipt of donation that goes into their wallet.
Huh.
And now when they go and they buy from a local store, they buy the strawberries from a store. Um, if there's two stores and one of them doesn't value those tokens that are associated with the park, it'll actually feel more expensive for me as a consumer to buy from that person whose values misaligned. Meanwhile, if I go to the store that's values aligned with me, who also cares about that park, it'll feel cheaper for me to buy from them. And so by a community adopting this new form of payment method that, by the way, can only be built on top of crypto rails, they are able to fund local public goods. And in fact, the public good that they're funding could be their DAO token, right, that they also include in their
Right.
wallet. And so this is a really exciting possibility, this new kind of payment mechanism. We're in